I pretty much have the same stuff going on all of the time, and I mix through it all of the time. I've never understood people who say, like, you know, I'm gonna do this and then take the mix bus off, or you know, or they start mixing without anything on the mix bus and then add it on. I mean, I can see that that might be something that's useful to like just add stuff later if you want to like step it up a notch, but I've used this stuff enough that I always know that I'm going to kind of end up in the same place anyway, so most of the time I just start using it. My mix bus stuff, so like I was saying, there's stuff that's going through the console, and on this song we've got drums going through the SSL. The bass isn't. The guitars are not. The vocal is. So on this song, it looks like, oh, and the backgrounds are. So drums and lead vocal and background vocals happen to be going through the console. The amount of compression on the 2 bus is not much at all. Let's hop over to a chorus and see how much it digs in. Full disclosure, if that meter is accurate or not, I have no idea. I never really use meters, and this compressor is a little bit weird. It's kind of unique sounding, and I really like it, but I don't necessarily trust the meter. But slow attack, fast release, 4-to-1. It sounds great on this thing. And then the SSL and the output of the SSL and then the output of other converters go into the Dangerous 2 bus. To blend them together. I love the Dangerous stuff. I actually have the new Dangerous 2 bus, but I lent it to a friend, so I brought this one back out. So this is blending everything out of the console and everything that's not, that I want to skip the console, is going through here. And then it goes through the liaison, which is you know, an automated patch bay that lets you pop things in and out. And I'll go through what I'm doing on that if I remember. This is a mix bus chain. This is a limiter. This is a parallel. We can talk about that in a minute. This is the Fairchild. Never get a Fairchild, because once you start using it on the mix, you won't stop using it. And then these are the transformers. So my mix bus for a long time has been a couple of pieces that I rely on heavily. The first thing that's going through is it's going through a pair of Moog EQs, just a little bit of top and a little bit of bottom, and taking a little bit of sub off. It's also going through these Cappy modules, and this is literally just running at Unity for transformer coloration. After that, it goes over here through the Dangerous Backs EQ. Again, just a little bit of top, a little bit of bottom, and some really good filters. And it also passes through this. This is a British company, Digital Audio Visual. He used to work in one of the really cool studios over in Britain, started making his own stuff. This is something I had him make custom for me, and it is just a tiny bit of stereo widening. I mean, you can see, like, it's a click of stereo widening that the mix bus goes through. It's very, very subtle. And then it goes back over here, goes through the Dangerous compressor, which again is something that is a great, like, finishing, final, wrap it up compressor, but if you look at it working, it's barely moving. Like, I don't even think that's hitting a dB of compression. But I love it because it just kind of wraps up and packages everything. I should also mention that the output of the SSL is going through a pair of Pultec EQP 1A3s. These are solid state gain makeup because I feel like they hit a little bit harder than the tube Pultecs, and it's going through the red, and it's also going through the Avalon 747.
The API 2520s in them?
Yeah, the Pultecs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then it's going through the red. And again, if I hit play on this and you look at the focus right, it's barely moving. Every time, And full disclosure, like this stuff, I haven't changed this in years. Like I got this on the SSL and I got it where I like it, and I haven't changed it in years. This piece is a really cool stereo bus piece. I have a tiny bit of EQ on the graphic, and the tube signal path, I don't know what it does except it sounds cool. You know, there's no compression. The compressor's in. I just, mess around, press buttons until everything sounds awesome, and then leave it forever. Yeah, that stuff's just been like that. I just like the way it sounds. I'm used to it. Back over here for some really crazy stuff. I have a tiny bit of parallel in here. The great thing about the Liaison is not only does it like remember all of your settings, when you change stuff, but it lets you have this parallel processing loop. So there's a tiny bit of parallel, and the parallel is this old 1970s Ampex mixer. It's going through that, and it's creating just a little bit of distortion, which I'm blending back into the mix bus just to make it sound interesting. And again, all of this stuff is really subtle, but just like with the vocal thing, it all kind of adds up to something. I don't even know if you can hear it. You press play. If I take it out, I can hear it. So that's, let me turn it down a little bit since we're over there. To me, it just gives a little fullness, funkiness, like, I don't know, character. Sometimes I use that, sometimes I don't. The big deal on this one is this guy, who adds a fair amount of gain, and this is the Fairchild. So this is the Fairchild that Mark Richardson built. It's the drip circuit board with vintage tubes and vintage transformers, and the most important thing, the vintage faceplate. Because if it looks good, it's more important than it sounds. I love this thing. It has a really unique character. Again, these meters probably aren't correct, and I don't care. I just tweak it until it sounds good. And then the last thing over here, here's the Fairchild. It adds a fair amount of gain, so that's hard to get an A/B on. The last thing over here are these transformers. These are old Western Electric 111C transformers. They used to use them for telephone stuff, and they're the bottom of the chain on the Liaison. And some songs they make more of a difference than others, but I just like it. Just has a cool, fun, extra color. Subtle, but all the subtle stuff, the 1 dB here, the little bit there, a little bit of discoloration here, the tiny bit of EQ here and here, the little bit of stereo, like it all adds up. And if you're gonna have pieces of this, we can do this. That's without any of the mix bus stuff. Obviously, volume makes a huge difference. I'd be curious to know what happens if you line those up and listen to it. I'd probably find out that it sounds better without all the crap I'm putting on it, and then I'd kill myself. But as you can tell, like a lot of the stuff that I use is just tiny little improvements using transformers and distortion and saturation stuff to just give character to things. Like especially even on the vocal stuff, I'm more looking for character than I'm looking for gain control. Like you can do gain control really easily in the box, but getting different character that works with different kinds of vocals is a little bit difficult. So I run stuff through Outboard, and it doesn't have to be like expensive old compressors. It took me a long time to work up to that. Maybe it's just one thing, or something funky or cool, or running it out through a guitar pedal. I mean, if you turn around, I've got a ton of guitar pedals in my studio, and it's very common. I will very commonly run vocals or bass or guitars or all that just through a guitar pedal and print it, and then you've got something you can sneak up underneath it and make it kind of cool and interesting. Full tone tape delay, Memory Man on lead vocals is really cool. Just whatever works. And the beauty about Pro Tools is, again, you can just throw it in there, and you can use it, not use it, turn it up, turn it down, EQ it after you've done. You know, it's pretty fantastic. Back in the day when we had to like get it right, like, and it was sitting there, and then you go to lunch and you come back and somebody would come in and turn the knob, and it's like, I spent like a half an hour getting that right. Those days are over. Now you just commit it.
MBS mix head. It's a digital tape saturation processor. I'm guessing, because I really don't know what exactly this thing does, but what it seems like to me is on a lot of tape machines, there's transformers, and those transformers have a really cool timbre. And in some instances, mix engineers that I would assist for, they would like to hit the input of the tape machine harder than what they would want to record at. And then you could actually just adjust your overall level of what's going to the tape down after the transformer. There's a way to do that, especially on, no, you can do it on the ATR 102, and you can also do it on the Studer A80s, the half-inch machines. So that was another way just to get excitement. So in this case, man, this is like a preset that I found that I really like. And then from there, I kind of just leave it alone. The only thing that I do is, depending on the type of song and how much harmonic distortion that I want out of it, I just crank the drive a little bit. And I do notice that a little goes a long way. So here, let me play you. So let me just play I'm going to play the chorus, okay? First chorus, a few seconds of just the processes we've been listening to for a while now.
All fired up, you got me all fired up, you got me burning with desire.
Okay, so now I'm just going to engage the mix head.
All fired up, you got me all fired up, you got me burning with desire, and it's gonna take me higher.
Okay, so do you hear like how the imaging just opened up? And the reason really, because the imaging opened up, it's adding harmonic clarity to the top end of the mix. And so it's feeling wider now, which is great. And I have to admit, just listening to it just with the drive at 1.5, it already sounds really freaking good. As you can see though, just to talk about it for a minute, I'm just going to play Pro Tools again, but you're not going to hear audio. Input gain, I'm still clipping because I hadn't really turned my overall mix bus level down anymore since we talked about the one turning down this trim 3 dB to hit the BX glue and the glue. Now the output of the glue, I did take down the makeup gain, but I was still peaking. Now that I've engaged the mix head, however, it's eating up some of my level, which is fine because I want that. Because there is a input gain, and the harder you hit the input gain, I believe the more it breaks up, it distorts, it has a different thing. And I'm almost positive this is a preset where I started at where I think I turned the input gain down a smidge to sort of start taming down and getting under control my overall mix print level before it starts hitting other processing. And of course I can change that. So as you can see, the input is peaking technically, and the output is, I've got a little bit of headroom, which is great. So now what I want to do though, I'm not going to adjust the input gain or the output gain. If I'm almost positive you can demo this plugin if you want to try it. Metric Halo. Thank you. I just realized the name. Thank you guys. So the only thing I'm going to do is let me just play this the way it is with the drive at 1.5, and I'm going to crank up the drive because sometimes I go to 2. Let's see what that does. So let me play this at 1.5.
All fired up, you got me all fired up, you got me burning with desire, and it's gonna take me higher.
Okay, that's 1.5. So let's go 2. Just right at 2. All right.
All You got me all fired up. You got me burning with desire, and it's gonna take me higher.
That sounds pretty good too. What happens when we go back to 1.5?
All fired up. You got me all fired up. You got me burning with desire, and it's gonna take me higher.
Dude, I gotta say, I like the 2. It's just adding a little more in there. That's really good for the track.
All fired up. You got me all fired up. You got me burning with desire, and it's gonna take me higher.
Okay, next. I stole this one, Ken. How many times have I said, I think that every time I say I stole this trick from Andrew Sheps, everybody got to drink something. How's that? He puts the Wigtech Pultec on his master bus and adds a couple of, I don't know what this is, and I don't even know if there is a dB increment on a Pultec because it's such a unique beast into itself. But 10K, once again, turn the mains off. 10K, 3.5, 4, depending on how dark the recording was when you got it, quite frankly. Bandwidth all the way up, low frequency 100 hertz. Sometimes I switch to 60, depending on what the bandwidth is, and I do a half dB. Guys, I'm going to mute again because I just want to play this. Because when the meter's pegging 0, it does a thing. I just backed off my overall master bus gain because I don't want to say processing or level. I mean, it is level. Really, it's just level. I'm just slowly turning things down because if like here, if I bypass everything for a second, like it's loud. But once I start engaging things and then I'm like that's down 3 dB because I don't want to hit this compressor that hard, even though I'm doing 2 dB at a peak, right? And then the glue, it's doing 2, 1, 2, maybe 1-ish. It's not really getting up to the 1. So it's just doing 1, a little squeeze of 1. And then here, now, of course, I can bump this back up, the output gain, just to hit the Pultec. See, there it goes. Oh, yeah. Oh, that was ill. I just went up 0.3 of a dB, and now it's like red. Okay. Which is kind of what I want, which is cool. So let me turn. But then now my bus is hitting a little bit too hard. So I can back off here at half dB. Or let's go with dB. There we go. Because I really want to hit this Pultec kind of hard. So.
And it makes me wonder.
So back to that chorus, okay?
All fired up. You got me all fired up. You got me burning with desire, and it's gonna take me.
Here's the chain with the new mix operating level, okay? Reference operating level.
All fired up. You got me all fired up. You got me burning with desire.
Okay, now Wigtech.
All fired up. You got me all fired up. You got me burning with desire, and it's gonna take me higher.
Hear how, hold on, let's do it again.
All fired up. You got me all fired up. You got me burning with desire, and it's gonna take me higher.
I'm just gaining like more aggression, but it like harmonic aggression, and also I'm gaining more clarity, which is I want. Now, it's a little hard from. I will openly admit the first time I mixed this record and I mixed this song and then I went on the second song, which they gave me an order to do, which was fine because this was the single. But I do remember that I went to like Pop Bright for them, and then they sent me a very nice email like, hey guy, a little harsh and a little shrill, and I was like, oh, I apologized, wink wink. And then what I did was I just opened the song up real quickly. I didn't change any levels with anything, and I remember I took this and I backed it off a half, like from 4 to 3 or something. And then I went through like the lead vocal and I backed down the high end 1 tick on a Neve, and the same thing with all the guitars. I went down and I just darkened it up like a smidge. And then they were like, that's it. Great. Which is perfect, because then I could just take that starting point, apply it to the next songs after that. And it worked amazingly well. So there is a point of like, and I'm guilty of, I listen to something for a while and I get a little like it's not ear fatigue. I just start thinking like, is it too dark? And then I start brightening it up and I go too far. It happens, whatever. That's why a good, if you're sort of chasing your tail with that, that's generally a good sign. If you're not on a hard deadline, just to stop, save it, or print a rough, print a mix where it's at, stop for the night, listen to it fresh with the first thing, you sit down and listen to it and go, no, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good about it. Or in the car as you drive to your studio, or on your way to a coffee or something like that, where you can just step away from it for a minute, especially if you're not on a deadline. And that's the gorgeous thing about being in my own studio, where I can come and go as I please. And generally most of my clients aren't on. Very, very rare do I get a deadline. Like, we have to have this done by a certain point. So it's easy to just go, I'm done. I think I should stop. Give my brain a break, my ears a break. Hit it hard tomorrow with a fresh mindset. There you go. Next. This is going to be good because the Millennia Brainworks EQ, this EQ, funny enough, I use as a little bit more of a utilitarian style. If I'm feeling the mix overall is a little murky or muddy sounding, like there's something building up because of where it was recorded, how it was recorded, or the key of the tune is a big factor as well. I've got my 2 dials here, like 220 hertz. Oh, they're both, I'm just going to zero them out. I got it set at 220 and 250, which is generally where the mud lives. And then to top it all off, if I'm still feeling the mix is a smidge dark after the Pultec EQ, because the more I brighten up here, the more, like I said, like harmonic distortion starts coming into play, which is good. But I feel like too much then gets fatiguing to the ear. So then if it's just like, well, I want air, I don't want top end, I want air. Then depending on what sample rate I'm at, which we're at 2448, so 21's not really going to do that much. But however, a 10K a shelf on this thing, this EQ normally at the hardware unit itself, it's just really beautiful and smooth, very silky sounding. It's not crunchy. And that's the whole point of the EQ, which is why I use it for utilitarian type stuff and just overall brightness. Now, going to play the track because there is something that happens between going through the tube circuitry and the JFET circuitry, funny enough. So even if I'm not EQing, I generally just leave this thing on. I'm going to play it.
All fired up. You got me all fired up. You got me burning with desire.
Okay, now I'm just going to engage the EQ, the unit, even though all of my bands are engaged. So technically, is there something going on? Yes. Is it that drastic of a difference? Probably no. But there is a little bit of a difference between what's going on between the JFET and the tube. And that's a good handy, a rock or pop tune, a JFET circuitry would be like a good starting point. But if you're doing like a jazz record or something like that, man, pop that over to the tube side and go, ooh, that might be nice. Like slower, more space, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sorry, I did it again. I rambled in between showing you option A and option B. So later, let me bypass it again. I'll play it again.
All fired up. You got me all fired up. You got me burning with desire. And it's gonna take me.
Okay. So then here's EQ on, or the unit on, no EQ added or subtracted.
All fired up. You got me all
Can I listen to that again, guys?
All fired up. You got me all fired up. You got me burning with desire, and it's gonna take me higher.
Yeah, it's just helping like bring the mix forward a little bit and helping solidify it. Just like it's at an ever so slightly timbre. I do think that because of the drums, like the boxiness of the drums, which I could try to go to, kind of want to just do a one click down on the mud. Just take a little of that mud out.
All fired up. You got me all fired up. You got me burning with desire, and it's gonna take me higher.
Now it's weird because I do like that mud, that 250 hertz dip, which I believe is just, it's either 1 or half. Might be just 1. And the Q is at 1. Okay. It helps with the bass but it doesn't help with, but it's what I'm losing here though is the guitars get smaller, which I don't like. And the drums get smaller, which I don't like. So I think I'm going to use that guy right now.
All fired up. You got me all fired up. You got me burning with desire, and it's gone.
Okay, next we got a Fairchild and some tape. The Fairchild is a little bit more about, it adds a little bit of a timbre. I'm not using it to compress at all. The threshold's off. Is it still going through the VCA? Yeah. But it's kind of what I use this for is my last stage of level, really. But here, okay, mix A, and then I'll turn it on.
All fired up. You got me all fired up. You got me burning with desire, and it's gone.
Okay, here we go. So I'm going to play it again, but I'm just going to turn it on and off, and you guys can look where it's kicking in and out. Because I got it level mat.
All fired up. You got me all fired up. You got me burning with desire, and it's gonna take me higher.
Does it do a little something, something? Yeah, it does. It's kind of nice. It's very subtle, blah, blah, blah. Once again, I'll show you why. Okay, so now it's time for some tape. Let's tape, dudes. Okay. Yeah, I want to, since this is rock and roll, I'm going to if you guys have spent time dorking around with, because that's kind of what I do, quite frankly. But then again, the GP9 might be nice. You know what? Hold on a second, guys. I'm going to change my mind here. I know you saw a minute ago, I had the 102 up, the ATR 102, which is great. It's amazing. I've actually done a live shootout with printing mixes to 1/2 inch and then monitoring this plugin at the same time I was on a console and I could just sit there and blindly switch the two and figure out which one I liked better. And they both sounded freaking great. That being said, there's a little something to do with how sometimes the 102 gets it has a natural bass boost in it, and that bass boost is a little bit higher on the register, which funny enough is typical for ATR machines. And so you would, like at Ocean Way, we had a couple of different head stacks laying around. Some head stacks were flatter and some head stacks had more low end kick bump to them, but that was purely a playback situation. So it was more a perception of the client printing a mix to 1/2 inch for the first time and just go, oh, my stuff sounds good. Because wherever they chose to master the 1/2 inch was a completely different set of playback heads. But that being said, it was it's a perception. So it's at that time you're using that And it was common to, when you were printing the first mix or two, to listen to what was going down. You would always listen to on the repro head of the 1/2-inch machine. So you're always hearing what was going down on the tape as your master mix to make sure everything was kosher, literally. So because of that kind of like tape bump thing that's going on that I know that happens on a 102, I kind of don't want to use that. But what I do want to use is the T-Rex 80, which is their version of a Studer A800. The one thing that I forgot to, I looked before I leaped was, I'll show you both at the same time, but I'm going to use the Studer guy. Okay. I'm gonna. Both sound really good. They do serve, but like everything, it's kind of like a different, Fuji apple and a Gala apple. I don't know. They both sound like apples to me. But sexier thing, functionality wise, about the 102 is it's really cool because you can get rid of the noise of the tape. It does change the timbre of the tape ever so slightly. You can definitely hear a difference. But man, I get so many clients going, I hear a hiss. I hear a hiss. And I'm like, sometimes it's a plug-in, like a delay or a reverb that's emitting a noise. But man, I get bit all the time. And it's like, how many records had hiss on them? But I guess just people's thinking is not theory and mindset these days. It's just like, well, I didn't use any tape, or I didn't use any old noisy, cool stuff. So why is there hiss? Why is there noise? Okay, fair point. It's their, hey, I'm here to do the job. So that being said, I don't like to reach for this guy if I know I need to take away the hiss. But since this is just a video just for us, and I'm showing you my workflow, I'm feeling a little bit more confident about using the Tape Machine 80 than the ATR. But however, on the T-Rex, you can't get rid of, at least I have not figured out a way yet, and maybe I should sit there and look at the manual, but I don't think there's a way to take away the tape hiss. So it's there. We're going to do rock and roll. Man, GP9, 499, that's like the rock and roll jam. 30 eps and 15 eps. Let's just stick to 30. Keep the noise floor down, okay? So let me play it for you guys.
All fired up. You got me all fired up. You got me burning with desire, and it's gonna take.
Now, that's a really nice, healthy level. It's printing to tape. This is where my Fairchild comes into play. And I know I got an input gain there, but I'm hitting this guy already. So why don't I just...
All fired up. You got me all
Still fine.
fired up. You got me burning with desire, and it's gonna take me higher.
I'm just playing it down right now because I want to just check. I'm looking at my input level of like how, because it does, the harder you hit it, depending on what you're trying to go for, the better the more fairy dust you get out of the tape. How's that? And it is the same on these tape emulating plugins. The harder you hit them, 0 dB +1. And that's what I would do if I was mixing on a console and I was printing to 1/2 inch and that was my master medium stereo format. I'd be sitting there just before I printed, just playing down the entire song, looking at the meters, making sure.
Fired up. You got me all fired up. You got me burning with desire, and it's gonna
Hitting hard. I'm getting some take compression. I'm pushing down that noise floor, even though I'm at 30 ips. So, but so just for laughs, here's the chorus, no tape.
all fired up. You got me all fired up. You got me burning with desire, and it's gonna take me higher.
Then here's with.
All fired up. You got me all fired up. You got me burning with desire, and it's gonna take me higher.
See? Party on. does such a cool, magical thing, man. You know, and there's times where I go through stuff and I'm like, oh yeah, the tape plugin will be great, and I put it on and it doesn't work. Maybe it's just me that day. Both the 102 and the T-Rex, they are cool because you can put it in input, which is basically you're just getting the modeling of the input transformers on the machines, which do have a timbre and do have a tone. But I have to admit, man, if you're just feeling like, the tape emulation is not working for me for this project or song, I'd probably just ditch it. That's usually what I do. But
All fired up, you got me all fired up. You got me burning with desire, and it's gonna take me higher. Without love, there's an emptiness inside. Let it go.
but
You can't run, but you can't hide. Oh, bless your soul. You can't see what's behind the smile. I'm falling apart. Can you see me, little angel? I never thought a fool would.
okay, last in the chain. We're almost there. Last in the chain is the Brainworks Master Desk Pro. It is basically, it's a mid-side compressor limiter designed as a all-in-one mastering desk plugin. It's really cool. However, I find that I want to lightly tap the thing, which is why I can just leave. I do have an input volume on the Master Desk. Now, mind you guys, dude, as you're seeing this plugin right now, it's completely stock. This is the way it comes up. I have messed with stuff in here before, but quite frankly, I get a little scared of messing with it too much. I just don't want to, because there's wideners, there's stereo enhancing. I don't know. I just always get a little scared by going down that road, because once I start, then I'm like, oh my gosh, got to have it now. And then I'm always a little bit nervous because I'm already engaging a limiter, which is like mix engineer 101 is don't put a limiter on your master mix, because then the mastering engineer is going to be mad at you. But I've had a good relationship with all the mastering engineers I work with, and I go, hey, my bus compressing, am I doing too much? Am I strapping your hands? And most of them, unless they're lying to me, they're saying, no, it sounds great, Daryl. I still have plenty of headroom to do stuff. Thank you so much. Thank you for being thoughtful about that, because I do know that people are saying that I want to get my stuff mastered. Well, great. But then they come in here and they just pummel like -7, -6 luffs and give that to the mastering engineer and go, okay, dude, do your thing. And it's like, well, I can't do anything. You've done it all. So I always want to be mindful of that I have some headroom, and I'm not really sure if we want to look together, we can, just to see, got a good, meter. Just kind of curious. Play that chorus.
You got me all fired up. You got me burning with desire, and it's gonna take me higher. Without love, there's an emptiness inside. Let it go. You can't run, but you can't hide. Oh, bless your soul. You can't see what's behind the smile. I'm falling apart. Can you see me, little angel?
I'm like hovering at -10, 9, 11 luffs. That's pretty good. Used to mix a little quieter than that. I kind of find that hitting the master desk goes a long way. A little goes a long way. A little sugar, a little spice goes a long way. That's the cool thing too about my meter, man. I should have done this before, but I can just keep it over here. I have another screen right here. that I can just quickly glance like where on my operating level, where I'm at, blah, blah, blah. But if I, once again, let me, first chorus, muting audio to you guy, right? Playing the track. You have a gain reduction limiter, which that's the limiter part over here. So it's doing peak of a dB. It's just grabbing some gnarly transients here and there and taking them down. But the compressor, like the mid-side compressor, there's a series mid-side compressor that's going on in this box. I know the previous owner of Plugin Alliance and who was the chief developer of, and I text him when the first version of this plugin came. I was like, dude, what is this thing doing? It sounds great. He was a little apprehensive about telling me what it was doing, but he did give me he was like, well, it's a mid-side compressor limiter. I'm like, okay. So I can't remember. There's these 2 meters right here. And I don't know, honestly, I don't know if one, because you see like this one's doing more. The left side is doing more than the right side. That's not the stereo image. That is the mid-side compressor. One side is the center channel and the other side is the sides, left and right. Which one is which? I'm not really sure. What you do have control of though is you can mess with the mix or the amount of compression that it's, well, it's not the amount of compression. It's literally a mix knob of the entire compression chain. So if your gain staging is right and you don't really want to mess with your gain staging at all, but you don't want to back this thing down, you could actually just turn this down a little bit. Or, you can just give it a little bump on the input here. But at the same token, which is why I have this guy, I can, which I've already done. I've trimmed the output down a dB. See, my input level is still hitting pretty good. See, now there we go. And I'm not even listening to this thing. I'm just sort of just looking. I've kind of figured out a little bit. I hate to say this, but by looking at the metering on this, how much it's doing by this meter right here, because there's times when I'm like, oh, the mix sounds great. And then I get to I'm not compensating for the end of the dynamic end of the song that adds 20 more guitar parts. And so the thing just gets loud. And then I'm like listening to the speakers going, man, why is it just sounding like it's getting crushed right now? And I open this up and both meters going, bleh. I'm like, oh, okay. Let me check my gain stage here because I don't want that. Once again, it's a little bit of a taste process. I don't want it to hit that hard. It sounds too processed to me in that case. So here we go. So let me turn this guy off. All right, here's one in. And it's great too because obviously it's this dB. I'm liking what it's doing, but it's obviously this dB input when I engage the plugin. So I'm just down a dB and I'm looking over to my left meter and all of a sudden I got like another dB and a half of headroom because it's not doing as much here, which is what I want. I just want it to lightly kiss these transients and just get the squeeze. But I do like what it does it's weird. For me, it's about more of the side of what this thing does, where the guitars just get pushed forward in a really musical way. And I mean, you could argue the point, well, why don't you turn them up more? I was like, well, I don't know, because it just makes them like super aggressive, but in a very pleasing musical way. And it's not grating at all. Which is why I kind of lean for this. It's always about I feel like I get the center image going with the kick, the snare, the bass, the vocal, But then, well, you're like, well, just push the sides up more, you know, like your guitars up more. But then it's weird though, because when I do that, then the guitars start feeling too loud, and then the drums start getting smaller sounding, which is what I don't want, because I want the drums to carry the foundation of the song along. But then there's something about how this thing interacts with the mid side where it brings those side instruments really forward, like a 2 dB, it feels like, but then it doesn't sacrifice what's going on in the middle. That's just a hard juggle we play as mix engineers, trying to find space for all this stuff. That's what I don't know. I feel like in some ways I'm doing more musical building blocks than I'm actually working on a tune sometimes, but that's what it is, man. Got to find, the client wants to put all this stuff in the space, and you got to find a hole for it. Good luck.
Let's look at the level here on the master, and just let's write with it from the verse to the through the chorus, and just see what that sounds like. And I'm talking about what we're doing here at the end. All right.
All I can see when I close my eyes, all that I hear in my quiet times, all I know is it's you that I can't get over. When I sit down to focus, my eyes blur and I'm feeling distracted. What I preach I can't put into practice, cause I can see it, I can see it, I can see it non-stop. The way you vibe, where you had me on top. We used to ride and we take it in stride. When you see me on the corner, let me at the rum shop. But I'm coming back to sober now, and your heart getting colder now. Remember what we had, I know that we will never get it back, but I can't get over. Can't get over. You know I can't get over. I know that we will never get it back, but I can't get over. Can't get over. You know I can't get over. Can't get over. Get over. Somehow you can still call me friend.
All right, so you get an idea of, musically speaking, that's all good. And level-wise, at the loudest points, kind of, it's clipping me, It's clipping me, and that's fine. It's not much, it's just a little bit, So let's talk about the alignment thing that I kind of like skipped at the very, very beginning. So in the digital world, normally we had a 0 VU on one of these Klanghelm meters, for instance, this guy. The 0 VU normally being -18, which I actually have a spot here. It would look like this. Okay, -18. That's a normal alignment out of your audio interface. And actually, what happens at that level, roughly, right, is if you made a mix at roughly that level, and you don't limit and you don't compress too hard, most of your transients would still fit into the headroom, just so. And maybe you would hit a couple. A console would normally have like something like +24 dB of headroom, but +18 is like starting where you go like, okay, this might just fit into it. But the problem is that obviously records are loud, and they're actually so loud that normally they want to be somewhere in the vicinity of -9, which is 9 dB hotter than what I just said. What happens at that point is if you don't limit or compress your drums crazy, they will definitely clip. There's just no piece of music I can think of that has drums that wouldn't fit into that without clipping. So in my hybrid environment here, I said, well, I don't need to be fully at 18 because I'm pretty good at where I'm at here, and I also know I can clip. Sorry, when I say clip, I can hit 0, but actually it's not clip because we can, as we said earlier, we can just turn it back down, and the floating point math will take care of it and unclip it. So I said, well, can I somehow get closer to my record, the end of the final mixed record, while still being in a acceptable levels for my outboard gear, and just the way I engineer, the way I feel gain staging should happen. And I found that level at -15. -15 is like 3 dB hotter than -18, 6 dB softer than where I want to roughly end up with. But if I'm at minus 18, minus 15, I can actually play this again. I'm gonna play one more time. It's gonna clip me quite a bit up here because I'm also pushing it by about, I don't know, 1.5 dB. But it's still kind of somewhere where I can agree with it. Like, if I can actually unclip it. Feels pretty good. I'm actually, that's funny, I'm almost at minus 18. But that's fine. Let's push it back. Like, I use this fader to scale my mix. Like, I would start maybe at 0. It's a little too hot over the time. Sorry about that. That's fine. But I would push it into where I wanted it to be for the final print, you know. If I do that too much, obviously it will distort. We don't want that. So here's how I handle this. So let's see. This is where I ended up at 1.5. I have, oh yeah, there's more trims as usual, right? I actually take it down by 12 dB and then up. This would say 12 at the beginning of the mix, but I'm going to show you how I do this. Because I want to maybe do a couple of processes not in the highest level. I want the mix to hit on an okay window for these plugins. How do I do that? Let me turn these off. So basically I turn down the mix by 12. You know, as I talked about before, this like green to yellow kind of range, which is in the range somewhere around 0 VU. This is the mix at a decent level for these plugins, 12 dB lower. In order to compare these though, I need to go back up by 12, right? So go 12 down, do something to the sound, go 12 up. So this actually sounds basically the way it did when I don't have these two trims. Yep. Makes sense, right? You're following me. So I have like a little bit of a a drop in the middle, and that's being made up. There's actually a couple more provisions that I didn't use that I couldn't go up and down for, but just forget about these. I'm going to delete them. I didn't use them on this mix. But I use a limiter at the end, and I mix into the limiter while we go along. I just want to see what the final mastering limiter might do to my sound. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it has. The record will end up with some limiting, so I might as well test the waters, so to speak. So let's see. I'm still gonna leave this stuff bypassed. So just to show this a little bit, but basically I'm trying to figure out where does it start sounding crazy in the limiter. That's definitely too much. I wouldn't be happy with that. Now, again, I'm using the L2, the limiter, in a way where I don't want to change too much of a level. So like if I took it down 4 dB, then obviously the record would be 7 dB louder, then it's hard to A/B. I don't like that. I guess you have finally figured out that that's important to me. So I leave it kind of this way, maybe in a way where, you know, it will limit, but it will not change the level too much. Instead, I choose this level to see how much I want the limiter to be addressed in a way, you know. As I turn it down, it will not hit the limiter much, but I can obviously turn it up. And this would be all right for like a rough idea of what the mix might sound like. Maybe a little lower. Leave it there for a moment. That's decent, you know, like. And now I can actually, you know, turn off the limiter if I want to and just see what that sounds like. It's probably not a good idea. Might probably distort. Let's see. You know I can't get over. Terrible, or whatever. But when I pop it in, it doesn't jump. That's the most important. So, but while I was doing the mix, obviously I started making some other decisions. Let's say it's somewhere around the time when I have the instrumental together, I probably put in the EQ and a compressor. The EQ just, you know, feeling like after you compare it with a few records, you're like, okay, I thought it could be a little bit more open. I know that we will never get it back, but I can't. You hear the difference? That's dark. Can't get over. You know I can't get over. Give it a little bit more sheen. In our case, add a tiny bit of bottom here. Oh, sorry. You know what this looks like? It looks like to me like I had more bottom at one point. Then I decided against it because it's actually not on. Then I decided that there might be a little bit, that the whole record might be a little bit too thin. So I added a tiny bit of 300 overall, and this one is not used. You see that? So let me see. So a little bit more 300, a little bit more 20 to open it up. This is without. Here comes in.
I know that we will never get it back, but I can't get over. Can't get over.
A little brighter.
You know I can't get over. Can't get over.
But I also felt it needs some compression. And here's a funny thing. So this compressor, the R compressor, is something I use on the mix bus not very often. And there's nothing wrong with it, and that's why it is on there right now. But the reason it's on there is because my first couple of choices, which is the Impact plugin, and for instance, I like the Slate Gray plugin. There's a bunch of them that I have already on here. The NE 3369, don't use that much more anymore on the master, but it's still around. The APA 2500 for some stuff, like some dance stuff, I like that on. And what else do we have here? Oh, that's also a little older. And that's also a little older. Mostly it would be Impact, Slate Gray, and the API 2500. And the Slate Gray would have been underneath it, and that's why it's wiped out. Sorry about that. But they just didn't give me what I wanted in this case. In this case, I wanted something that had like a little bit of harmonic generation, which the R compressor with that, with the warm setting, does a little bit of that. And there's a kind of cool feel to that. And this preset that they have, Master Electro Firm, has a nice feel often. And I do adjust them a little bit, you know, but around the 4 milliseconds attack, that's pretty good. Just to shave off a little bit of the peaks and give it a little bit of a different feel. Let's see. It's so subtle in this case. It's just, you see the gain is 0.2, which means that it probably doesn't hit it very hard. Let me turn it off and then turn it on.
Over. Can't get over. You know I can't get over. I know that we will never get it back, but I can't get over. Can't get over. You know I can't get over. Can't get over. Get over.
How to describe it? Like maybe just a little more solid feel with the way the harmonics come through it. A tiny bit lift in that way. Sometimes it's that because, you know, we leveled the whole record in a way that we liked. And I do sometimes mix into the compressor, but most of the time it will be after a big part of the record is already in shape, you know. So I don't want to totally change it at this point. I just want to do something, you know, give it a little lift towards, remember the way we did it on the vocals, like give it a little compression, a little bit more compression, a little bit more compression. We do the same thing on the master, like just a tiny bit more, okay, that's not bad, and then the limiter tops it off a little bit, and then obviously mastering will do something on that too. And then I did something that I do sometimes. I felt the whole record had like a tiny bit of a loose feel at the very, very bottom. Like the 26 hertz. This is again a very subtle thing. I wanted to see if I could just get a little bit, you know, not have the kicks that hang out a little bit in the bass, that hangs out a little bit, all rub around a little bit. That's maybe not the best description, but I felt like the record would come out a little bit better with a little bit of a low-cut filter there, even though, as you've seen, I've done that in other places. But this is kind of a catch-all. And then after I pushed the 20 kilohertz up a little bit to give it a little bit more sheen, I said, well, I like it, but I don't like it. It's almost like I didn't like the curve of it exactly. So I decided, well, you know, let me take off a little bit of the very top. And so you can imagine like a curve that goes up and then finally goes a little bit like this, you know. So it's kind of a little different feel. Let's see what this sounds like.
Over. Can't get over. You know I can't get over. I know that we will never get it back, but I can't get over.
So that's pretty good. It's a subtle thing, but I hear the difference here on my speakers on the high end a little bit. But at that point, you're basically in a land where you say, you know what, the mix is in a good shape. I kind of know what it sounds like going through a limiter, which is something that will happen in mastering. And I have shaped the high end and the low end in a way where I feel like, you know, if it had to go out like this, I would be okay with that. And it's just the final touch. I like the curve bender. I can also tell you that sometimes literally use an EQ3, which I think sounds good too, and also the Massenburg EQ. But that is also one of those things. Like some people like the MAG UAD EQ with a high air band. That's fun. That can be fun. And it's sometimes you just change a couple of things really fast and go like, okay, this one works. Okay, this one works. And it doesn't even have to be the one that's like the best or whatever, but you get this gut feeling of this does something to it that I like. So that was the whole mix, top to bottom. I have one more thing for you if you stick with me. We actually were lucky enough to have this song already mastered by Ruben Cohen at Listen Mastering. I just wanted to show you the difference between my final mix and the final master, and then we basically have it all covered.
Our drum master, our parallel drum master, kick, I call this kick add. It's additional kick all by itself. Percussion, which is anything that's not the drum kit. So programmed drums, claps. In this case, it's claps and tambourine. Bass master. Everything else music master, so guitars and synths. And then our vocal master, and that includes backgrounds and leads all together. Certain songs I might add or take away masters as needed. If I have a live strings, I'll put in a string master. Sometimes there won't be any percussion. Sometimes I might want a separate background vocal master, but generally my masters look something like this. And then those all feed this final master fader, where I have the master bus processing that I like on this song. And this yellow track, just ignore that. That's just for our cameras so you guys can hear what we're doing. So normally all these will feed 1 and 2, and then the master will be set to 1 and 2. So I guess we'll just go from left to right, starting with the drums. So the drums in the parallel have the same plugins, except that on the regular drum master, they're either bypassed or the mix knobs are set to, like 0. They're not up at all. There's no distortion going on in this. But then on the parallel one, it's a different story. So they're aggressive on the parallel one, and they're off. The only reason they're here is in case I wanted to use them, and also from my template, they used to be there for delay compensation, so they matched, but I don't really need that anymore. But yeah, they're just sitting there. So ignore these plugins. But the last one, the channel strip, doing some contouring of the drum kit, just kind of that smiley face, a little bit of presence, a little dip in the mids, and then a little bit of boost on the kick. I kind of did this at the end of the mix. I just felt, after I had the mix finished and had my master bus stuff in place, that, the drum bus could just use a little bit of extra thump. So just popped that low end in. And then I copied that. Whatever I do EQ-wise on the main one, I try to do similar. Sometimes I'll copy it and then modify it so it better suits the parallel bus, but a lot of times it matches. I don't want to EQ it too differently and cause any kind of phase problems or anything. So the main drum bus, actually let me go to the chorus. That's the main drum bus. The parallel drum bus, we have SSL waves, which we have set pretty extreme. The decapitator, which the mix isn't that high, but it's definitely heavily distorted, and then just blended in about 35%. Then limiter, kind of the same thing we did on the snares. This is kind of shaving off transients. I have the natural one for any transients, so this one is just kind of giving me more RMS level, and it's going to help my drums be able to bring them to the front without the transients getting louder, and that'll help me get a loud mix in the end, as well as it's kind of a cool sound for the drums. So here's what the parallel bus sounds like. So I'm going to leave the EQ because it's just kind of contouring, but you hear this is kind of what the natural was. So really insane amount of compression with the SSL. Definitely wouldn't use that on its own. That definitely has to be mixed in with the natural. But then we're distorting that. And then using the L2. So that hard transient we were creating, we're just chopping that off, and we're just bringing all this kind of lo-fi, grungy, gritty vibe just up to the front, you know? So when you mix that with the original, so now the original just sounds really boring without the parallel. So definitely a little bit on the extreme side. It's you know, we're going for a processed sound and less just of a natural drum sound. We just want the energy, the power. We want it to sound fun. So we're favoring the parallel a little louder than the natural bus. So I talked about the kick add bus earlier using the invisible limiter, and this is literally just to get the kick up over the top of the mix at the end. It's just the kick all by itself being sent from these buses, and doesn't even sound great. It's just that mid-range, heavily limited, and that on top of everything with the mix, it works. Okay, so the next Submaster is our percussion, which only happens on the bridge and the outro. And we have claps and tambourine. So we got the clariphonic. Really, it's just adding a nice sheen, nice brightness to it. Pretty simple. And then with this Pro Q2, I kind of, after boosting the high end, it felt a little like maybe some of the mids were getting lost. I definitely worked hard on the mids, making them sound comfortable and smooth, but kind of that hollowness of the clap, I kind of wanted to bring some of that back. And then this is kind of that painful 2K area that claps have a lot. I just kind of pulled that down a little bit. And then this is definitely strictly for the tambourine, and I kind of heard this when I was wearing earbuds, and I saw it on the Spectrum, that little spike. I just decided to see what it would sound like to take that out, and I liked it better. But it's probably negligible. It's, you know. Let's see. Next is our bass Submaster, and if you remember, that bass was definitely extra huge. So this is kind of a little bit higher of a range that I'm compressing than on the actual bass channel. We were kind of working and EQing a little bit lower in the sub range. This is a little bit more of the upper bass. So now we're on the Submaster, kind of working on that. And it's literally the only sound coming through the Submaster, so it's fine. I mean, I could have added this on the actual bass channel, or Submaster. It doesn't matter. It does its job. Okay, and then our next master is our music master. So that's everything from the electric guitars, the crazy acoustic guitar, and the keyboards. So I have a clairphonic and I have a metric halo. So the clairphonic, definitely just going for opening up the highs and kind of matching the drums, matching the vocals, late in the mix. I don't do, except for the drums, I kind of save this processing for the end, where I want to kind of touch up groups of things rather than individual things. So as a whole, all the guitars, all the keyboards, they kind of benefited from just a little bit opening of the high frequency. And then this metric halo, this is kind of more of a feel EQ that I did while listening to the whole mix, and just hearing, tucking little frequencies here, boosting frequencies here, things that I heard from an overall mix standpoint, not an individual instrument standpoint. But I didn't want to do it on the master because I didn't want to affect the vocals or the drums or even the bass or the percussion. I just wanted to affect all the music stuff, the keys and the guitars. So it was just kind of listening to the whole mix and trying, bypassing, dropping things in and out and seeing what works and what made things better. Kind of almost like a mastering mentality on some of this kind of stuff. In the beginning stages of mixes, I don't recommend kind of doing this stuff until you really have an ear for it. It's kind of almost unnecessary unless you're really going for a final mastered product and you've been mixing a while and you can hear that kind of detail. But for those of you that have been doing it a while, it's that's what I kind of do. Just rather than add more EQ on top of my vocals, trying to EQ guitars and keys and stuff, I do that just on the music master, and it helps. But it's definitely subtle EQ bumps. So then finally our vocals have a little bit of a SSL stereo compressor just to kind of pull all the vocals in together. Just not even everything, maybe 1 to 2 dB at the most. Let's go to a hook where the gang vocals are going and see exactly what this is doing.
When the night falls, come on baby, kiss me when the night falls.
So you can see if this is 4 dB, it's barely getting up to 1 dB. It's mostly 0.3, 0.4 dB of reduction, sometimes maybe a whole dB. It's a slow attack, fastest release possible. So it's a very non-invasive compressor at this point. We're just kind of gluing the vocals onto the track.
When the night falls.
So it's really just kind of grabbing the loudest things. One thing I heard, I think when I was working with the earbuds, is the kind of super highs on her vocals during the verse. So that's way up there. I mean, if your guys' system, you guys are listening on a laptop or watching this on your phone, you may not hear that stuff, but If you're on speakers, you'll hear it. Really, I just wanted to contain that stuff. It's above kind of my de-esser range, and it was still kind of, I kind of reduced that with the Pultec, but it was still kind of hanging out and jumping up occasionally, and just kind of sticking out. Nothing else in the mix has that kind of high-end information at this much level. So I really just wanted to tame that.
Is it you or is it me? Maybe we're just
It's not S's. It's not what I would call brightness. It's purely air. But I didn't want so much air on this song, so we're definitely compressing that. And then as I started opening up the whole mix with my master bus processing, which we'll get to next, the vocal kind of got a little bright again in this range. This is kind of a wide range of, you know, almost down to 1.5K and up to, you know, probably above 10 or so. But
Is it you or is it me?
I'm doing very little reduction. It's only set at a range of negative 1.7, but the threshold's kind of high, so it doesn't really kick in all the time. Again, it's just one last bit of control. Same with this static EQ. So these are just kind of massaging points that I felt as I was finishing the mix. So, and lastly, we have our master bus. So, my master bus, I generally start with an EQ. Many songs, I'll do a high pass filter right around 30s, between 28 and 32 hertz, 24 dB per octave. I've been doing that lately, probably the last 6 months. I'm just kind of getting in the habit of always doing that. And then these are just frequencies I heard throughout on the mix. I'll give you an example. This one here was pretty drastic when I did references of other songs, comparing this mix to other songs, and this is one big one that I heard. This frequency here,
Is it you or is it me?
kind of all that the muddy 200 range, and you can hear it when I pop that in. It definitely cleans it up.
Is it you or is it me? Maybe we're just caught in between a teenage love dream and reality.
And, you know, as I reference, I might massage some of these again, but and then you got like this one. That's definitely kind of a frequency when you crank the speakers and you listen loud, that kind of gets painful. So I tuck that a little bit, not too much to, you know, ruin the EQ of the song, but enough to where you can get a little bit louder with a little less pain, you know, for those people that like to crank it in the earbuds or in their car or whatever. A little bit of a subtle shelf, just opening up the highs. We had some down in the sub range, tucking,
Is it you or is it me? Maybe.
you know, but you know, in general, like none of this is you know 6, 7, 8 dB of EQ. It's all pretty subtle stuff. Some of it, you know, less than a dB. Again, it's kind of like that mastering mentality. Next, we have the Slate virtual tape machine. I like this plugin on the master bus. All the settings, like the tape settings and the speed settings, they'll have kind of their own character and sound. And then one of my favorite things is in the inside the menu, they have this bass alignment, and you know, you can have it down to negative 6 dB or all the way up to +3. But it's kind of a cool thing to set it whatever your preference is. Like you got your mix going, you pop this in, and the bass kind of shifts, and it's kind of cool to drop that in and hear that happen. For a while, for when I first got this plugin, I would have this pretty heavy on the bass, like probably +2, +3, and then for a while I was trying it negative, where it would tighten my bass, and Now, now I've kind of settled in where it is now, but check it out when I pop this in.
Is it you or is it me? Maybe we just got in between a teenage love dream and reality. Wherever your heart beats.
This kind of adds like a cool life to the Sonics. I kind of dig that. So this is a trick I've been doing ever since this plugin came out. This is the soft tube saturator, one knob. It's basically just distortion, but it has this cool type switch, which they have the keep low, neutral, and keep high. And literally what that does, if you have it on keep low, it won't saturate the low end. It'll just saturate the mids and the highs, and that's a cool thing for the stereo bus, because with all the low end energy in a mix, that the low end frequencies have the most energy compared to high end frequencies. So they're going to be the first to get saturated. So by putting on a keep low, I can have plenty of deep subs, 808s, whatever type of music I'm working on, but get a little bit of saturation on the mids and the highs. So it's perfect for the stereo bus. I barely even get to 9 o'clock. I don't go drastic, because again, it is the stereo bus. It's kind of our sacred last vehicle to the listener, so we don't want to go crazy. But what this does for me is it kind of pulls the back of the mix forward a little bit. So check this out when I pop this in.
Is it you or is it me? Maybe we just got in between a teenage love dream and reality.
It's just a better button. You got to do it. You got to have it. So next, this is fairly new for me. I generally have 2 compressors on my stereo bus. One, which is my final compressor, the API 2500, which doesn't have a mix knob. And then I usually have a compressor with a mix knob that I keep around 25 to 30%, but I compress it really crazy. So this is doing a lot of gain reduction. Check this out.
Is it you or is it me?
There's no way we could do that. I mean, you could, but it wouldn't sound good to have that at 100% with that much reduction on the stereo bus. It would sound horrible. But at 25, 28, 30%, it actually sounds really cool. So check this out when I bypass it. So we're just blending in. If you imagine a fader, 2 faders, one super compressed, one not compressed, and you're just blending in 25% of that super compressed, you're getting more RMS level. With this particular plugin, it seems like the mix gets more present, more maybe brighter. I don't know. It's just something I noticed. It just kind of pokes out more. But check out how it sounds.
Is it you or is it me? Maybe we just got in between a teenage love dream and reality. Wherever your heart.
So that's a pretty cool trick. And then this is my favorite stereo bus EQ. I actually use it on individual instruments as well, but this is a Sontec EQ. A lot of mastering houses, have these, and it's been around for a long time. So T-Rax makes this plugin, and it sounds really great. It's not very flexible. It has a lot of a lot of frequency points, but only like these 3 bands, and then it has a high shelf and a low shelf. But yeah, I'll show you what I'm doing with it.
Is it you or is it me? Maybe we just got in between.
I have a little bit of a level boost too. Let me flatten that out so you just hear the EQ.
Is it you or is it me? Maybe we just got in between a teenage love dream and reality.
So we're boosting a little bit of near the fundamental of the kick, a little bit of mids. We've been working so hard on the mids to make sure that they're smooth. now that we're on the master bus, we can kind of add a little bit back in and fill out the mid-range, and now it's nice and controlled, but it's not missing so much, you know. And then way up there, real high, it's kind of the hi-hat, cymbal, tambourine, top of the clap range. You know, and there's not a lot of stuff up there. Maybe top of the vocals, just a little small boost there. And then finally, we have our API 2500. And this is always my final compressor and my final volume knob. This I'm actually I'm not boosting. I usually have the output kind of cranked. The reason I love this compressor as the final thing is that it has kind of a soft, it's either a soft clipper or limiter. I don't know what you want to call it, which one, but if you have the analog switch on, it won't peak above 0.
Is it you or is it me? Maybe we just got in between.
Of course, if you turn that off,
Is it you or
now you're peaking. So, kind of a hidden gem in this plugin.
is it you or is it me?
So you don't have to strap on, a brick wall limiter, and you're actually able to just hit this thing, without doing so much damage to your snare and all that. Of course, we worked so hard on our transients on this mix anyways. A brick wall limiter wouldn't really do much damage. It'd probably work just fine, but in general, I prefer this. I'm using a little faster attack than I usually do, but I'm not turning the threshold down too much.
Is it you or is it me?
I'm just kind of tapping on things that stick out.
Is it you or is it me? Maybe we just got in between.
So, yeah, we're hitting maybe negative 0.7, 0.8 dB, not even a whole dB. So just kind of hitting those last transients just on the top. And that is the entire mix.
Need. Maybe that's something it's me. Maybe we had too much to drink, yeah. Or maybe that's what we need. Oh, yeah. Ooh, oh, do you really want me? Oh, tell me you do. Oh, do you really want me? Oh,
There you have it.